Welcome to Module 4. Hey, Dr. Newsom here, and I'm very proud of you. You made it this far. That's excellent. All right, here we are. We've covered a lot of ground. In Module 1, what is an autoimmune disorder? Module 2, we talked about the 3 I's. Module 3, we talked about gut health in autoimmune, right? Which brings us to Module 4. We're going to talk about the triggers. What is it that initiated this whole process to begin with, and what is it that's perpetuating it, right? So in order to stop the process, we have to go back to the beginning. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. Well, okay, Module 4. We're going to look at the big picture here. All right, I hope to show you here how toxic everything is today, okay? We are inundated with toxins. There's things around us everywhere that are causing irritation in our system. And as our system gets irritated, remember, our system has an inflammatory response. And so everything, okay, so air, water, food, personal hygiene products, even medications and things like vaccines all carry toxins that trigger an inflammatory response in our body. And so what we have to do is we have to identify what it is that's in your environment that's causing you trouble. We need to eliminate these as much as possible here. Okay, our environment's toxic, so we can't eliminate everything entirely. But what we need to do is minimize your exposure, at least while you're going through this process of beginning to heal and detoxing and those types of things. We get you through some detoxing, we get you on the other side of detox where you can kind of build your system up again, where you can withstand some of these things. Until then, we got to minimize your exposure. So let's talk about the typical American day, right? Okay, standard American day, standard American diet, standard American everything, right? So you wake up in the morning on a mattress that's been treated with fire retardants. Those fire retardants are off-gassing toxic chemicals that you get to inhale all night while you're sleeping. Then you go to the bathroom, you take your toothpaste out, got fluoride, the antibiotic triclosan that causes cancer. We got, let's see here, sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a door opener to other toxins, okay? So when the cell gets sodium lauryl sulfate in it, that causes swelling of the cell, making the cell more permeable, and it opens the door for more toxins, okay? You brush your teeth with this, then you go to the shower, you take a shower, you get all your, your lead, fluoride, chlorine shower that we bathe in, and from there, you get out of the shower, you put on, say, lady, you're putting on makeup, you're, all of us are hopefully using deodorant, and other things. And we go through all these applications of all these different just personal care products that are made of thousands and thousands of toxic chemicals and materials. And we're getting exposed to these things, okay, we haven't even left the bathroom yet. Okay, so we leave the bathroom, right? We go downstairs or we go out to the kitchen. We get to the kitchen, we take our processed food, stick it in the microwave and completely denature it. So any nutrients that it may have had after being processed have now been destroyed by the microwave. We consume that. Then on the way to work, we stop by the coffee shop and we get coffee made with the same lead, fluoride, chlorine water that we bathed in, okay, and we put that in a plastic cup or in a to-go cup that's laced with different preservatives and things like that, and other chemicals that keep it from deteriorating while you have the coffee in it, right? And you drink the coffee with, made with the lead and chlorine fluoride water. And the coffee, by the way, also was raised with like 400 different pesticides, herbicides, and other chemicals. So you're getting a little bit of all of that. You get the contaminants in the water, contaminants from the cup that you're drinking out of. It's got a plastic lid, so you get all those BPAs as you consume the coffee. All right, you get to work. Oh, and by the way, you have a cell phone and you have electricity in your walls. So you're getting all these EMFs all day long, all night long while you're sleeping. And you go to the office, you sit down to your computer's putting off EMFs. There's Wi-Fi everywhere putting off all kinds of EMFs. Those are electromagnetic fields. And then we move on to lunch, okay, and we go to the pizza shop and we have a GMO pizza and so say a tall glass of soda, and then in the afternoon, because we're exhausted at this point, we have a donut and another cup of coffee in a styrofoam cup, and we drink all that down. Again, we have the same contaminated water, the same contaminated coffee, right? We're consuming all of that, and we get home, we go to the microwave and microwave our processed food dinner, eat that, and this is doesn't include, if you've been doing this for long enough, you're probably going to need medications because your body has lost so many nutrients, is so deficient, it can't regulate itself anymore. So you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high sugar, high all these different things. So you're also throughout the day taking toxic medications. And then because it's the in thing in medicine, every time you turn around, doctor wants you to have another vaccine. Okay, and let me just tell you this on vaccines. Even if a vaccine works, the way it works is by provoking an inflammatory response from your immune system. Okay, I don't know if you've figured it out yet in this course, but that's a bad thing. Okay, you don't want to artificially provoke your immune system into an inflammatory response. This is terrible, okay? So let's just put all this together. Do you get the picture? Do you see what I'm trying to tell you here? We are living in a very toxic environment. People are consuming very toxic foods, very toxic drinks, very toxic, everywhere we turn, there's toxic things that are irritating our body, triggering these inflammatory responses. All I can say is, my gosh, modern society is in a terrible crisis. We're in trouble. We're in massive trouble. Statistics right now, okay? Right now, as we're filming this course, statistics say that within the next 8 to 10 years, 50%, 1 out of every 2 child in the United States is going to be autistic. That's not an accident. I'll just say that. There's no accident to that. That is our environment, our diet, our water, our medicines are all creating this. Okay? Autoimmune diseases are climbing at an unprecedented rate. And it's because of the same issues. All of these things that I'm discussing, all these things that I'm laying out, all these different things, this is what is triggering this in your system. Okay, these responses, these autoimmune responses that we're having is because we are constantly being irritated by all these terrible, horrific toxins that are in our environment. We're exposed to them all day long, every day, and if our body is nutritionally deficient, our body becomes a toxin sponge. Okay, if you get toxins into your body where you are supposed to have nutrients, your dysfunction has to happen. It can't help but happen. Okay? We are under constant and chronic exposure to toxicity in our air, our food, our water, and in our environment. I get emotional on this too. It's because we're not, it's one thing for this to happen to me, but it's happening to my kids. Our children are exposed to exactly the same thing. And children don't have the capacity to eliminate like adults do. Their livers, their kidneys, their lymphatic system don't have the ability to package these toxins and eliminate them the same way that adults do. It just hasn't developed yet. Regardless of where you live on the planet, okay, this is everywhere. Everywhere, every baby born today, anywhere on the planet, if we test their cord blood, we can find at least 250, normally it's between 250 and 285 known carcinogens. Not just toxins, carcinogens. Okay, cancer-causing chemicals floating in the blood the baby was formed in. Okay, and it doesn't matter where you live on the planet. Every baby is being formed with that in their system. Carelessness. Carelessness is what brought us here. The bottom line, go for the buck. That's what brought us to this situation. We're here because the regulatory safety agencies are all bought off. They're all paid for, and any regulation is negotiable. And therefore, it's like, for instance, right now there's glyphosate is, there's one lawsuit after another. They've proven glyphosate causes cancer. Well, glyphosate's one of 8 chemicals that are all equally toxic, and no one's even saying anything about the other 7 chemicals. And so when they'll take glyphosate off the market at some point, but we have 7 more right behind it that are just as evil as it is, and no one's even addressing those. So by the time they're addressed, how many more are going to be on the market? So how are they getting on the market in the first place? That's my question. How is this even happening? If you know something's this toxic, which they do, they knew glyphosate was as toxic as it is before it ever even hit the market. So how that product even got on the market in the first place, I have no idea. Other than our safety agencies are all bought. They're all paid for. I know the toxicology of what is happening in our planet very, 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 very well. I've studied it for a very long time. But at the same time, I've also studied the remedies God has given us. And He's provided us everything we need to minimize the impact of what we've done to our planet. Okay? The problem comes in is there's not enough people utilizing the things that will minimize the impact of the toxic environment that we've created. And that's why we're doing this course. So I hope you can see that this is not one thing that's triggering this inflammatory response that your body's going through. It's not just one thing. It's the conglomeration of multiple things converging on your system, multiple irritants converging on your system, triggering an inflammatory response that can't be shut off by itself. Okay, it has to be undone. Okay, so it's not just one thing triggering this. I have so many people come to see me, Doc. I had a lady one time come to see me. She was diagnosed with 54 autoimmune diseases. And she's like, I don't know how I'll ever get better. I says, well, you only have one problem. She's like, no, I have 54 diagnoses. I said, well, yeah, but they're all caused by one thing. They're all caused by unchecked inflammation. So there's something triggering inflammation in your system so globally that you're having this manifestation in 54 different configurations. Okay? The problem is unchecked inflammation. So in her case, we were able to reverse all of this. And what I'm sharing with you is the process that we use. So let's go back. All of these things are triggering, each one of these things is triggering inflammatory responses in your system, right? Meaning there's lots of things going on here. We're under constant and chronic exposure. It's air, water, food, our environment, right? So at this point, let's go take a look at each. I'm going to take a look here. Okay, well, we need to discuss quite a few things here. We're talking about the irritants in our environment, irritants in our food, our water, our air, our personal care products, medications, and all kinds of places, right? We got irritants all over the place. All these different toxins are, again, they're irritants, and these are triggers for this autoimmune response. So, I mean, think about this for just a minute. We can live without food for about 45 days. We can live without water for 7 to 10 days. We can only live without air for about 4 minutes. Okay, so this is we're going to start with air. Okay, let's start with air. And since we're starting with air, let's go outside and talk about air. Whoa! Oh! Wow, that was fun. Well, we're outside, and we're right next to the interstate. Wow. So let's talk air quality. How does air quality affect autoimmune disorders? Well, one example is, as research shows, rheumatoid arthritis is directly correlated with air quality. Poorer the air quality, the more probabilities for developing rheumatoid arthritis. We've got, we've got power plants, we've got reactors, we have factories, we have farming, we have all these different things that drastically negatively affect our air quality. And our air quality is getting worse and worse every year. But according to the EPA, the air quality in our homes is 2 to 5 times worse than it is outside. So they're saying that our houses are becoming traps for pollen, animal dander, fumes from off-gassing materials like flooring, lacquer, furniture, paint, all these different things that are letting off fumes, many times fumes that you can't even smell. And therefore, our air quality in our homes is getting worse and worse and worse also. That brings us to, so Doc, what do we do about this? Well, we live and breathe in a blanket of toxins. That being said, we need to use HEPA filter air filtration systems in our homes so we can clean up some of the air in our homes. We have to, let me repeat, we have to detoxify our bodies periodically. Periodically, we have to purge and cleanse our systems. Just like you clean your house, you have to clean your body periodically. It's extremely important because these things will accumulate in your system. If you don't take time to get rid of them, it's just like not taking time to clean your house. You're going to end up with problems. Once you've cleaned your house, there are things that we can do to fortify ourselves so we can deal with these toxins better after we've cleaned ourselves up. We'll talk about those in our next modules. One of the things that touches everything is air, all right? Air is everywhere, right? Well, air comes into contact with water. So our air quality comes in contact with our surface water, correct? Remember, we talked about water and how water is adhesive. It sticks to things and stuff sticks to it, right? So let's go from here. Let's go talk about water quality. So, we're talking water quality now. Okay, water is adhesive. Water sticks to things and things stick to water, right? It picks up whatever it comes in contact with. All right, well, let's think of well water. Let's think of, well water. It's been in contact with everything that's in the ground. City water, okay, has been cleaned somewhat. You know, they took the solid waste out of it, most of it. They actually leave about 3% solid waste in it. Okay, but to cure that, they throw in lots of chlorine and lots of fluoride to kill any of the stuff that might be in the 3%. You know, that 3% that they just leave in the city water. So we're exposed. Okay, now the thing with water is we drink it, we brush our teeth with it, we wash our face, we bathe in it. Quick note on bathing: when you take a shower or you bathe in a bathtub and soak, you absorb between 20 and 25% of the water you come in contact with. So think of it, if you're bathing in water that's 3% raw sewage and has chlorine and fluoride in it to minimize the ill effects of that. Just think about that for a minute. If you're absorbing, half a gallon of that every time you shower or every time you bathe, how is that going to help you, right? How is that not going to trigger an inflammatory response? Remember, everything we're trying to do here is we're trying to minimize the toxic exposure, so we minimize those inflammatory responses. So water, typical water, is going to have heavy metals. It's going to have fluoride, chloride, lead. Okay, you're going to have TCEs. You could have PCBs in it. There's there's all kinds of stuff that could be in the water in small amounts, but small amounts daily over years become big amounts. Let's talk about bottled water. So even if they bottle good water, right, something that's been filtered, purified, clean, okay, if they're sticking it in a plastic bottle, some of the plastic is leaching into that water. Okay, there's a compound called BPA, bisphenol A. All right, BPA is a hormone disruptor. It causes prostate, breast, ovarian cancer, testicular cancer. Anything hormone related in our body, it starts to mess things up, right? Even if we're sticking good, healthy water into a plastic bottle, we're going to get some of this BPA in our water. Now, remember, BPA and other plastic byproducts are released by extremes in temperature. Okay, so extreme heat or extreme cold. How many times have you gone to the grocery store and seen pallets of plastic bottled water sitting outside in the sun, right? I don't know about you, but here in Idaho during the summer, we hit 110, 115 degrees sometimes. Not all the time, but we can hit those numbers. If you're in Phoenix, how hot does it get there, right? So if these water bottles are sitting out in the sun, they're heating up, okay? Extremes in temperature cause a release of the toxins from the plastic into the water. Now, let's say you take those bottles home, you stick them in the refrigerator, you stick them in the freezer, right? You cool them off. What happens? There's another extreme in temperature. That extreme in temperature, again, creates a release of these toxins into the water that you're going to drink. So, what do we do about all this? Filter your water. Filter your water, filter your water, right? Reverse osmosis is excellent. You can get them by your sink. You can get whole house reverse osmosis units. Another thing is the water containers that you use when you're out and about. Get glass or get metal water containers that don't leach into your water. Okay, this is really important. Now, air in water, things we're discussing here, we can't get away from air. We can't get away from water. We can't get away from all the toxins in these things. We can minimize them, right? We can drastically reduce them, especially in water. But we have to do whatever we can do in order to minimize the toxic exposure that we're getting from these mediums. Because toxins trigger inflammatory responses. If you have an autoimmune disorder, you can't afford to have an inflammatory response. That's bad. It makes your system and your condition worse. So anything that we can minimize, any way that we can minimize toxic exposure, we reduce the prevalence and the continuity of these inflammatory responses. Okay, so we've talked air, we've talked water. Our next medium is food. Okay, so let's go from here. Let's go to the grocery store and let's go talk about food, all right? All right, so let's talk food. Food's something everybody gets exposed to, right? Everyone eats. At least they should. The thing with food is what is food for one person's poison for the next. All right, and this is very, very common. We see this, any of us that deal with people in food, we find that not everyone can handle all the same things. Not everyone does well with all the same foods, right? So let's talk about the big culprits. We'll call them culprits, okay? We got sugar, we've got gluten, we've got GMOs, we got alcohol, we've got, with GMOs, we got pesticides and herbicides and things like that. All that cause disruption, cause an inflammatory response in our system. So you got celiac on one side, you got non-celiac gluten intolerance on the other side, and the symptoms are almost identical. Food is an irritant for most people. Almost everyone that hasn't done something to cultivate a healthy microbiome has food sensitivities. It's basically universal. Almost everyone has these issues. So we look at soy, we look at corn. These things are virtually entirely GMO in the United States. So if you're eating anything soy-based or anything corn-based, you're very, very likely to be getting a GMO. And with the GMO, you're also getting pesticides and herbicides that are patented antibiotics that are killing the microbes in your gut, okay, damaging your microbiome. So with this, okay, we got people that are eating all these things, they're getting terrible damage inflicted on their microbiome. The natural response to this would be a inflammatory response. So people get food sensitivities, very, very common, okay? Then we have food preferences like vegan or vegetarians, and then they're not getting some of this essential nutrients that we need in order to detoxify our bodies to the environment around us. Whereas at the same time, in an autoimmune disorder, in order to retrain your gut so that you don't have a lot of the leaky gut related sensitivities, you have to go plant-based for a good portion of the time. What do you do if you have a food allergy, or how do you know whether or not you have a food allergy, right? This is a good question. First off, if you have some chronic symptoms, 9 times out of 10 you have some sort of food allergy. Okay, it's ridiculously common. If you haven't done something to cultivate a very healthy microbiome, I would bank on having a food allergy. You probably have a food allergy. I send people for food allergy testing. We do blood tests. I prefer the blood tests over the skin tests. Skin tests in somebody that is globally inflamed, if they're somebody that has massive inflammation in their entire body, the skin tests will always come back positive. Everything they test for will come back positive. All right. The blood tests are a little more sensitive and a little more reliable. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about here is sugar. Sugar itself can be an irritant. Okay, sugar is like fuel to the fire here. Okay, when we have chronic illness, there's always chronic infection. Sugar feeds the infections, number one. Okay, number two, the most girth promoting hormone in our body is insulin. Excessive insulin in our body promotes an inflammatory state. Okay, so if you have too much insulin in your system, it's going to promote your body to swell. So swelling is inflammation. You get too much insulin in your bloodstream, your body will start to swell. Okay, that does what? That promotes autoimmune disorders. All right, so sugar triggers our body to release insulin. So we have too much sugar in our diet, our insulin goes up, our body becomes pro-inflammatory. Okay, so the next thing we need to talk about now is alcohol. Okay, so alcohol, chronic alcohol consumption causes massive disruption in the microbiome. Okay, alcohol does what? What do you use alcohol on a wound for? To kill bugs. Well, guess what happens when you consume alcohol? You kill bugs. Okay, no different. Okay, that alcohol goes into the gut, starts to poison all the good guys in your gut, creating space for the bad guys. When that happens, you give space to the bad guys, they take over. Okay, when that happens, it sets up another pro-inflammatory state, which is something you can't afford if you have an autoimmune disorder. We could do an entire course on sugar, on alcohol, or on gluten, right? Or GMOs. We could cover each one of those in their own separate course. We've talked a lot about food, and I want you to look at the things that we've supplied. We've supplied some good resources. We've got recipes, other things like that that are in the course here. Pay attention to those. Go look at those and use those resources. But what about what we're preparing our food with? What about our pots? What about our pans? What about our cookware? How about we go take a look? All right, so, it's not just about the food that we're eating, okay? If we're preparing awesome, healthy food in bad cookware or in the wrong things that are going to release toxins into our food, the cookware contaminates our food, These are the types of things that I would use here. I would use cast iron elements for cooking. Something like this with your non-stick surface, this is going to release toxins into your food. So we'll talk about this some more. Okay, your non-stick pots and pans. Okay, let's say you're eating the highest quality organic foods you can possibly get a hold of. All right? And then you cook it in a non-stick pan, a Teflon pan, an aluminum pan, which leach toxins into the food that you're preparing. Okay? When you heat a non-stick pan, there's a reason why they eventually start to stick. It's because that coating with heat leaches the contents of that coating into your food. Okay? And with the non-stick, you get a lot of fluoride. Really bad, right? We'll talk about fluoride again. Okay? But, you know, these... You got to get rid of these things, okay? Doesn't matter if they cost you a bunch of money. If they're intoxicating you, they're not worth it, right? So, it's not just about your cookware, though. Microwaves. Microwaves destroy the food you're eating from the very inside out. They destroy the genetics in the food. They destroy the nutrients in the food. Once something has been heated up in the microwave, it's no longer fit to be eaten. That is not food. I don't care what it was when you put it in the microwave. If you pull it out of the microwave, you shouldn't eat it. Okay? That's not healthy. Food that's been radiated is damaged. Okay? It's not healthy. When you radiate the food, you're destroying the phytonutrients, you're destroying the vitamins, you're denaturing the minerals. The proteins are denatured, the structure changes as they're being radiated, and they actually become toxic. Okay, so that good, healthy food that you're sticking in the microwave is coming back out as a toxin. And it irritates your system every time you eat it. Oh, so let's talk about furniture, all right? We got couches, we got mattresses, we got, finished furniture, we've got manufactured furnitures and things like that. We got flooring, we got paint, we got all these different things, building materials and so on and so forth, that release, they off-gas chemical toxins. Things like benzene, formaldehyde, dyes, bleaches, all kinds of things. Bleaches have chlorine in them. These are very, very toxic chemicals. And they trigger an inflammatory response in our body. So if you have an autoimmune disorder, you can't afford to not address these things. Okay? This is important. Autoimmune disorders are runaway freight trains of inflammation. And in order to put the brakes on, we got to start eliminating all the things that are feeding into this process. So, we got some other things that can be done. Okay, I mean, if you can, if it's not too cost and prohibitive, replace everything. Get away from these toxic things somehow. Get organic, toxin-free furniture and paint and flooring and things like that, okay? Use air filters in your house, right? Vacuum your floors with HEPA filters. Open your windows. Let air circulate through your house. Don't keep it cooped up all the time. Okay. Also, dust. Use microfiber dusting materials so you can get and eliminate all the accumulation of the things that are in the air. Try to eliminate as much of that as possible. Spend some more time outside. Go outside. Get out of your house a bit. High quality air filters and furnace filters and those things for your heating and cooling system is super, super important. Also, clean your floors in your house frequently. Don't let things accumulate, right? Same thing is in your house as in your body. Don't let things accumulate. the main thing here is we have to eliminate as many sources of toxic exposures as possible so we can reduce the triggers of this inflammatory response that your body is stuck in. Okay, so let me just cover this real quick. The new house smell, the new carpet smell, the new car smell, okay? The new house, new carpet smell, that typically, outside of other hydrocarbons and things like that, formaldehyde is a big thing that is in the off-gassing of building materials, okay? Including things like flooring and carpets and all that kind of stuff. So you got formaldehyde in that sense from the cars. In cars, when you get a new car and it has that new car smell, there's one of the major toxins that you're being exposed to there is benzene. What I have people do when they get a new car is don't get in your new car and leave the windows shut. Regardless of the temperature, let the windows down for about a minute after you get into your car. Let that smell leave the car. Get new fresh air into the car. When we moved into our new house a couple years ago, it smelled like a new house. It was brand new. No one had ever lived in it before. I went and got a 5-pound bag of baking soda, went into every room in the house, scattered baking soda all over all the carpets, everywhere. We had brown carpet and it was white when I was done. Left the baking soda on the carpet for 12 hours. Then we went through and thoroughly vacuumed all of that up. And by the time we vacuumed all the carpets and cleaned all the baking soda out of the carpet, it had neutralized those toxins, and there was no more clean house smell. Okay, all that off-gassing had been neutralized. It's a real simple, very practical way to deal with some of that. And even if you have old carpets that are kind of musty and whatnot, just kind of have a smell, a weird smell to them. That's also another excellent, baking soda. Put that on there, go through and vacuum it up thoroughly, and that baking soda will grab a lot of the garbage and the toxins in the flooring. Okay, so at this point, it's important that we cover EMFs, okay? EMFs are electromagnetic frequencies. Okay, electromagnetic frequencies are pulses that are generated by electronic devices, and they pulse, okay? Sometimes they pulse at really high rates, sometimes they pulse at slower rates, but it's a pulse that's put out, an electromagnetic pulse that goes out from electronic devices, okay? Also from the electronic wiring inside your house, same thing. You get this pulse from that, right? It's kind of like if you drop a pebble in still water, that pulse that goes out from those ripples, they go out from the pebble hitting the water, right? Those devices all emit a pulse, and those pulse carry frequencies. In the case of like Wi-Fi and smartphones, it's a microwave frequency that's going out of the Wi-Fi and then also out of your cell phone. I mean, it's going back and forth. And it doesn't matter if it's in your pocket or in the other room, your cell phone is emitting these microwave frequencies. Your Wi-Fi is emitting these microwave frequencies, and they're meeting. Whether they go through your body or not, those frequencies connect. Okay, when they pass through your body, it creates all kinds of cellular disturbances. Okay, your cells communicate via hormones, via electrical wiring called nerves, okay? And then they also have something that is very similar to Wi-Fi, okay? That's cell-to-cell communication where one cell sends a frequency to the other cell. Well, that type of communication starts to get disrupted when we're surrounded by electromagnetic frequencies for too long. Okay, if we never get a break from them, our cells don't communicate as well. All right, that could cause some problems, don't you think? Okay, also excess microwave frequencies, which is what we get from Wi-Fi and from cell phones, things like that, damage the mitochondria in our cells. Okay, when the mitochondria in our cells are damaged, they don't produce energy the way they're supposed to. When they don't do that, the cell doesn't operate the way it's supposed to. Okay, when that happens, dysfunction happens, and when dysfunction happens, inflammation is triggered. Okay, so this is a very important. This is a very important point to make, that we need to give ourselves a break from electromagnetic frequencies. We need to get away from electronics for at least a period of time every day. We need to give ourselves, turn your cell phone off at night. Turn off the Wi-Fi at night. Shut things down. Let the give yourself some rest from this bombardment of electromagnetic frequencies. Right now, they're trying to put, what is it, 5G into all over the United States. What that will do is that's going to put a microwave frequency emitter every so many yards, from each other. So their grid will overlap. So you can't get away from these things, right? That being the case, we need to minimize as much exposure as we can, and maybe even get away from all of that, get out in the country a little bit every once in a while so you can actually kind of just disconnect from all of that. What happens on a cellular level is these microwave frequencies create what are called reactive oxygen, ROS, reactive oxygen, I'm sorry. What these microwave frequencies, let me start over, here we go, one more time. What these microwave frequencies cause in our cells is called reactive oxygen species, okay? These are free radicals, okay? They're unstable oxygen molecules that anything they bump up against, they cause degeneration, okay? In that, anytime your ROS goes up, your inflammation levels go up to meet it, okay? So they rise and fall together. The more ROS, the more inflammation. The less ROS, the less inflammation. Therefore, if EMFs create more reactive oxygen species, okay, that means they are going to trigger more inflammation, correct? Okay, so what do we do? Well, instead of Wi-Fi, why don't you use an Ethernet cable? Instead of, leaving your cell phone on right next to your head while you're sleeping, turn it off, leave it in the other room, okay? Disconnect appliances, especially if they're going to be close to your sleeping area, right? So you should get some some distance from all these things. Don't sleep near a power box, okay, or a modem or anything like that. Don't have anything like that close to your bed, and definitely don't have it close to your children's bed. All right. You got to increase your antioxidant intake because you are exposed to these things. All right, so both eating a wider variety of fruits and vegetables, eating the rainbow like you'll probably hear me talk about at some point, getting as many colors as possible throughout the day, that's super, super important. Also, consuming supplemental antioxidants, very, very important for reducing the effects of EMFs in our environment. It's not just chemicals, it's not just heavy metals and all these other things, it's also electronics. You know, this whole electromagnetic radiation toxicity was something our ancestors never had to deal with, okay? This is something they never had to deal with. So here's a question I get asked a lot. Why do women get far more autoimmune disorders than men? I mean, 80 to 90% of all cases of lupus are in women. 70 to 75% of all people suffering from autoimmune diseases are women. Why is that? It comes back to personal care products. Okay, so we got cosmetics, we've got perfumes, we've got makeup, and all of these different things. A very recent study says that every day, okay, a woman is exposed to 168 chemicals through personal care products every day. Okay, these 168 irritants to her system every day. There's a condition, an autoimmune condition called primary biliary cirrhosis. Okay, so it's cirrhosis of the bile duct in the liver, linked to, okay, this autoimmune disease is directly linked to nail polish. I mean, think of that. So you take lipsticks. Okay, 60 to 80% of all lipsticks contain lead. Okay, I mean, that's ridiculously toxic. You have all kinds of things in cosmetics. Think of this, you got hair dyes, you got makeup, lotions, you got sunscreens, you got, oh man, deodorants. Okay, in these, you got heavy metals like arsenic, lead, mercury, nickel, beryllium, thallium, selenium even, toxic forms of selenium. I mean, all of these things are so very toxic, and it's the constant exposure, okay, that promotes that inflammatory cycle and keeps it going, right? One of the problems is a lot of these things can be absorbed right directly through our skin. Important thing to remember, okay, your skin isn't designed to keep things out. It's designed to keep things in, okay? So your skin is supposed to keep you on the inside, not keep things out per se, okay? It is somewhat of a barrier, but it's designed to keep things in, not necessarily keep things out. So one of the things with toxins that's super important to remember is our body's 70% water. Okay, since our body is 70% water, we respond to our environment very similar to how water responds to the environment. Okay, water, from a chemistry standpoint, water is adhesive, meaning that things stick to water and water sticks to things, okay? That being the case, if we went to the hardware store and we bought a 5-gallon bucket, and we sterilized it, and we filled it with 5 gallons of distilled water, just pure H2O, right? Nothing in that water, right? And we take and we put it outside your house, up next to the street, and we leave it there for 6 weeks. What'll happen with that water? Well, it's stagnant, number one. It's not moving, right? It's stuck in a bucket. Number two, it's going to be exposed to all kinds of things in the environment, right? Well, that water will accumulate its environment. It'll grab onto everything that it's exposed to. Why? Because it's adhesive. Things stick to it, and it sticks to things, right? So, that being the case, you got to remember you're 70% water. You accumulate everything that you come in contact with to some extent. Some of that floats into your system. And if your filtration systems are working fine, it floats right back out. Problem is, if you've already developed an autoimmune disorder, your filtration systems aren't working properly, okay? Your body is, at this point, holding on to toxins within your tissues and within your cells, and it's perpetually triggering this inflammatory response that you're suffering from. If you're already dealing with an autoimmune disorder, your filtration systems are not functioning properly. And your tissues and your cells are holding on to all these toxins and are not releasing them. They're not flowing back out of your system. They're flowing in, but they're not flowing back out. And they're perpetually triggering this inflammatory response. So what do we do about this? We have to, you have to replace the dirty cosmetics with clean cosmetics. You got to replace the dirty personal care products with clean personal care products. You have to do this. A good place to look to check your cosmetics and your personal care products is the EWG. EWG.org is an excellent place to go take a look, and you can grade your products there. From here, we need to discuss heavy metals. Now, we kind of touched on them in the part about makeup and personal care and all that kind of thing, but I mean, that's definitely not the only place that we're exposed to heavy metals. I mean, do you live by an airport? Okay, are there planes flying over you? Do you live by a freeway? Are there, you're getting car exhaust? There's fumes, you get cadmium and lead and things like that coming out of car exhaust. Do you live close to an interstate? You got, in dietary sources, you got fish. Okay, obviously, fish from any ocean, especially fish that's been farmed. Okay, farmed fish always seems to have a higher amount of heavy metals in them. Big thing with fish is do not eat the skin. The skin is where most of the heavy metals gets stored. Also things like organ meats, liver. Liver is it's a filter, okay? And especially cows and other animals like that, a lot of the toxins and heavy metals get stuck in the liver, and they're exposed to these things just as much as we are. So, that's not necessarily, today is not something that I would recommend eating, right? Also, do you live close to factories? What kind of manufacturing is around you? What kind of, are there any chemical factories close to you, or metal manufacturing, or those types of things? Another thing is vaccines. They're a great way to get heavy metals into your system. I'm not even going to get started on mercury. But the amount of aluminum allowed per day in drinking water is 25 micrograms, okay? A flu shot has over 4,000 micrograms. Okay, and see, if you were taking that orally by your drinking water throughout the day, this tiny little amount of 25 micrograms would have to be filtered through your gut, through your liver, before it ever got to your bloodstream. Okay, when they take and inject that into your system, it is just dispersed right into your system. When we look at the chemical structure of an herb or a supplement or a mineral complex, we look at the aluminum content to determine how well that substance will travel across the blood-brain barrier. Okay, because aluminum carries things back and forth across the blood-brain barrier. So if you're injecting aluminum into your system, anything that it's got in that solution, it's going to take across the blood-brain barrier. Not a good idea. All right. Medications. There's a lot of different medications still today that are heavy metal based. Not all the heavy metal medications have been eliminated from the U.S. pharmacopoeia yet. Some antibiotics even are heavy metal based. There are different there are fluoride based antibiotics that are extremely dangerous to take, that are commonly used today because most people are antibiotic resistant to some extent, and these fluoride-based antibiotics are still very effective. So this one of those things, take at your own risk. Also, we've got mercury fillings. Okay, mercury off gases. Okay, it releases mercury ions at 83 degrees. Okay, if you heat up mercury to 83 degrees, it starts off gassing, releasing mercury ions into the air. So if you happen to have mercury in your mouth, which should be 98.6 degrees, you're off gassing mercury all day long, 24/7. All right, constant source of irritation. The other thing is root canals, where they've filled root canals with mercury or other heavy metals. It's another source of heavy metal poisoning. Different tests that I use hair analysis, fingernail, toenail analysis, all together combined. I use those. I also do urine analysis for heavy metals. We're going to cover detox thoroughly in our next session. It's also in my book, which you should have if you purchase this program. You should have my book. My book talks about detox, and there's methods that we will lay out here in how to detox these things. You don't want to just jump into chelating heavy metals if your body isn't draining properly, because all you'll do is circulate them and take them from one area and deposit them someplace else. You won't actually eliminate them. Okay, so there's a process that you need to go through before you start trying to eliminate heavy metals. Long term, the name of the game here is to minimize your exposure.
Say that last part again.
Okay.
Get rid of heavy metals and then dive into what you just said.
Okay, so the long-term goal here is to minimize your exposure. You just want to minimize your exposure. You're not going to be able to get away from it 100%. Okay, these things are in our environment. There are two things that we need to do. One, reduce our exposure. Two, increase our nutritional density of our tissues so that we're more resistant to heavy metal poisoning. Okay? The long-term goal here is to reduce our heavy metal exposure, okay, because we can't avoid it 100%. It's not possible. These things are in our environment. So we need to reduce our exposure, but we need to increase our body's nutritional density. So we have so many nutrients in our system that we are more resistant to heavy metal poisoning. Okay, so what we have to do is reduce our exposure, minimize our exposure. We can't do that 100% because these things are in our environment. But we reduce our exposure and we maximize our body's nutritional density, because when we have an abundance of nutrition in our system, we become resistant to heavy metal poisoning. Well, are you learning something? Have you picked up anything so far? I know this module had a lot in it, but we have only skimmed the surface on this matter. There's toxicity is such a huge issue in our environment. And the big idea here in what we've presented is you need clean food, you need clean water, you need clean air, you need a clean environment. If you're constantly being irritated by bad food, bad water, bad air, bad environment, how are we going to turn off this inflammatory response your body's having? how are you supposed to get better? I mean, because of this, we've added all kinds of bonuses to this. You're going to get my book. You're going to get detox protocols. You're going to get product recommendations. You're going to get recipes. We have all kinds of resources. So make sure you go to the bonus page and get into those resources. Pick up those things. Fill out the checklist, the autoimmune trigger checklist at the bottom of the page. Get that. Fill that out. See what your report card is. All right. Remember, I'm Professor Newsom. I want to see your report card. All right. So as we're moving forward here, we're going to move into Module 5 next. Module 5 is probably my favorite, because this is where we're going to transition from in a lot of ways, bad news to some really good news. Okay, we're going to show you these protocols. We're going to talk about how to eliminate all these irritants that you've stored up, probably in most cases, your entire life. Okay, one of the things I will bring up when we get into this part of the course is it's going to be time to clean house. Okay, so we're going to cover the detox protocols that I use with all of my patients. So I cannot wait to show this to you in Module 5. So this is Dr. Newsom. I will see you in Module 5.